Good evening. My name is Paul Madore. I'm a member of the Planning Board, but I'm speaking primarily as a citizen here. I did vote as a member of the board to oppose the acquisition for various reasons. I was willing to let that matter go, given the fact that we had voted in the affirmative to support the city's recommendation for purchase. But as the process went on, we were looking at the potential. Some were, not myself. I did not initiate a petition initiative. I've done that in the past. It's a lot of work. It's costly. I'm not new to the referendum process, and I know that there's stumbles after stumbles that are placed in the way to inhibit that process. And Mr. Eisenstein knows that. We went toe-to-toe back in the 1990s on various issues, and we persevered. And we were able to bring citizens' initiatives. They did everything possible. And I don't view his ruling to be any different than that, as an impediment to discourage voters from pursuing the petition process. We're all at stake here. Each and every one of us, our rights are jeopardized in the process to petition based on his legal ruling, and I think we need to challenge it. The City of Portland was fined $50,000 for violating the rights, the constitutional rights of those citizens. That's how serious this matter is. So when we have a concern to redress, to bring to the people to redress these transgressions that we believe sincerely, this is not fabricated. There are people who are legitimately concerned about this matter, but after discussion with these various attorneys in Portland, my intent is to share my information with members of the board and other Lewiston citizens who are concerned about this purchase for various reasons, and I think they're good reasons, and they're reflected by the city council members who are speaking against the purchase because there are more pressing matters to apply these funds. We don't believe for a minute that the city applies the funds in an efficient manner. This is monopoly money. This is funny money that goes in and out the door at such a rate that you can't even possibly track of it. They moved so quickly on this that they had to redirect their initiative and come back to the board a second time because the whole process was faulty. This is how fast they act. I don't think that the attempt is disingenuous, but I think you're denying the rights of the citizens of Lewiston to bring this matter to petition. It mirrors in a striking way the case that took place in Portland. So my primary concern is the citizens' initiative. I think it ought to go to the voters. I think you're going to do yourself a disservice if you deny the people that right, given the fact that they've requested it, and you don't have members of the board who are requesting this. There are citizens who are involved in this matter. So I'm going to ask you to reconsider this. I'm going to share the information that I have, raise the money for the cover charge, and come back to the city council and press this matter further. And I would ask Attorney Eisenstein to reconsider his legal decision. I think you're denying us due process, and it's a process that we deserve as voters. Thank you.
I've seen 3+ decades of public spending to try to improve Lewiston. We're still looking at a bottom line that now gets worse every year. The private sector does do a better job. We spent 2 centuries of the private sector doing a pretty darn good job. It seems as though when the public sector gets in, it changes the entire dynamic. And we need to get back to the dynamic that works. We're going to be at $500,000 before this is done for a parking lot that will never return on its investment. It's probably, there was a 10-year pro forma involved. In that 10-year pro forma, it was suggested that we would make $1,000 or $1,100 a year on that investment. $10,000 over the course of 10 years. And that's assuming we go through the full 10 years without developing that property, which is likely to happen. But if we had the good fortune of somebody coming in and buying that property and putting up the vision that's in the proposed comp plan, that would be great. But then there would be sunk cost, a huge amount of sunk cost into that parcel. We shouldn't be in the business of prospecting land as a community. There are people out there that are struggling. $315,000 to them is not chump change when they're struggling on minimum wage day in and day out. There are some things that we could better spend our money on. One of the proposals from the planning board at the time was to redo a bridge, which is a health safety issue for the people who work on the other side of that bridge. And it also would be an investment in that riverfront area, which would probably attract more private investment in the area if they see that sort of work going in, but to simply, like the song says, to build another parking lot. So I would advocate allowing this going out to the public for a public vote. Have faith that the people of Lewiston will do the right thing. Let both sides make their arguments, and the best man or the best contender win at the end of the day. Let the people of Lewiston decide their own destiny. I've seen 3 decades of this sort of thing, and we are no better off than we were 30 years ago as far as all of these great projects. They just seem to sap us again and again in our pocketbook. So, thank you.
If the petitioners are this serious about making a change in city policy, A, they could run for city council, or B, they could take out papers to collect signatures and offer a policy proposal and collect signatures for that.
Hello, my name is Blaine Linton of 70 Tampa Street, Lewiston, Maine, and I'm a board member for Blue Willow Counseling and currently also running for City Council Ward 5. The issue I think that again that is really to be decided again is the legal definitions of administrative and legislative function of the committee. And I can't disagree with anyone who's spoken today, but in running for city council, one of the things that I would always hope to defer for is the very political function itself, which is to defer to the people wherever there may be these points of contention. And certainly the planning board has voted against this action, and city council has voted for the purchase of the building. And again, I think that the real issue is not just necessarily, excuse me, whether it should be developed or not, but whether or not we should be making that choice as opposed to the people. And in discussing some of the legal precedent, I think, again, that if we get it wrong, there is legal recourse. In Portland, again, in one of the other previous cases, there's a $50,000 penalty if we get this wrong. In addition to that, in discussing the terms administrative as well as legislative, those terms are not always black and white. And so I think as city council, we have to really consider that. And we want to really try to, in determining that fine line, lean towards the people. I, for one, as a taxpayer, would like to be able to have the choice, if given the choice, to choose where the tax dollars are spent and if things are to be developed. And I also agree that we can't have a town hall committee for every single issue that's a large, and I don't feel that that's what's going on. I feel, again, that this is something that we really strongly need to consider and make sure that we get right. And as city council, I would not want to have to look at my constituents and say, I didn't really care what you thought, and I did not want to give you the choice. And that's all that I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Cloutier.
So just a couple points I want to make. First of all, I think it was Mr. Marcotte who said he's lived here for 53 years. I grew up here, and I'm raising my family here, and I couldn't disagree with him more. I actually really love this place, and I think his kind of sense of hopelessness around never getting a return on investment on something located in the Riverfront Island area, I disagree strongly with that. I think that the idea that this isn't about the properties on Oxford Street that's been presented as a little bit disingenuous. That's why we're here. That's why the petition was started. If it wasn't about those properties, we wouldn't be having this discussion tonight, and there wouldn't be a petition. I think that if the petition were legal, and we weren't having this conversation about whether that petition were legal, it would have gone to the people, and the vote would have been to the people. And so I think the question that we're trying to sort of get to the bottom of is whether the petition was legal. And my understanding, based upon the ordinance, is that that's questionable. And so I think that we have to decide in our own minds what, and the opinion we've been given by the city's council is that it's not a legal petition. So if that's the finding, then there's really no other. I mean that's the finding, and so to try and move forward on a petition that isn't legal, I guess to me, doesn't seem appropriate.
Councilor Chance?
Thank you. I would agree with the speakers who noted that this is not about Oxford Street. It is not about a parking lot. There are a couple things it is about. It is about spending upwards of $500,000, $500,000 on a parking lot. I believe that is what this petition is about. It's the best use of our funds. We spend a lot of money on a lot of things, and $500,000 in the end, at the end of the day, on a piece of dirt is not the best, most efficient use of this city's resources. I believe that's what this petition is about. It is not about building a parking lot. I think we need more parking. I've advocated that, but I will not advocate, as we saw on the council's August 11th meeting, spending that kind of money for a parking lot. The other side of this is the people's right to be heard when they feel the need. There is a debate whether this petition is allowable or not allowable under the law, and we've heard both sides of that briefly. I think that is a question. I'm not in favor of land banking per se, but this issue is something that resonates with people with the amount of money being spent. I believe if this went to a vote, it would probably be approved allowing the purchase of the properties. That isn't necessarily what I would want to see happen, but at this point it is a matter that we've heard from the petitioners that they would like this to be put to a vote and be sent out. Now, the council has a couple options. We can deny the petition for agenda item 2, and there's also an alternative item 2B to put this on the November ballot. This would negate any legal dispute. It would put that aside. It would put it to a vote as soon as possible. I believe the public would be likely to approve the acquisition. That is an option that the council can do, and it sets aside all the debate and any precedent, any legal action, or whatever we might be facing from what I've heard from Mr. Madore. That might be the best and most efficient use of the city's resources in this matter at this time. I would not advocate supporting item number 2 to deny the petition, and I would advocate for number 2B. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bouchard?
Not going to speak about Riverfront Island. I'm not going to speak about these properties. I think I've talked quite enough about these properties in previous meetings. And any decision of this council, whether I'm on the winning or losing side, is a decision of this council, therefore me. But I'm never, whether I'm on the winning or losing side of any argument here with the council or any vote, I'm not going to deny any group of citizens, whether or not, as some people have noted, they are obstructing or not. I'm not going to deny them their chance to put this out to a public vote. So notwithstanding any other opinions, I'm going to support the petitioners, at least their right to be heard, and send it to the people.
Councilor Dote? Sure. Everybody else is adding.
So a couple of things I want to bring up, first of all. It hasn't really been mentioned, but all we keep hearing is that it was a negative recommendation coming from the planning board. No one's brought up the fact that that was also a 4-3 vote too. So there was no clear cut from that side as well. It wasn't a unanimous vote that the city council overturned. It was a 4-3 vote. Those 4 votes are actually 4 of the 10 signatures on this petition. So if we start opening the door this way, every time somebody loses on the council now, we lost the vote 4-3, those 3 go start a petition, you only got to find 7 more people to hold up all progress in the city. So to say this is not an obstructionist view, I don't understand how you say that. Everything can be brought now. 3 votes lose, you only need 7 other people, we each get our husband, wives, come and sign, now it's all done.
Call the roll. On number 2.
Yes, on number 2. Counselor from Ward 1?
No.
Ward 2?
I'm just making sure I read this correctly, how we're...
Can you read the order again, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Please.
The motion before you is to approve the resolve ratifying the conclusion of the city clerk that the council order adopted on August 11th, 2015, entitled Approving the City's Purchase of 2 and 26 Oxford Street, Lewiston, and authorizing the city administrator to execute the purchase and sale agreement and other documents necessary to effect the transaction is not a permissible subject for a citizen initiative referendum, and therefore that the city clerk cannot issue a proper petition.
You all set? Have to read? Then I vote yes.
From Ward 2 votes yes. Thank you. Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
No.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
No.
Motion passed by a vote of 4 to 3. Item 2B, resolve directing the city clerk to place a question on the November regular municipal election ballot regarding the acquisition of 2 and 26 Oxford Street.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Council LaChance, seconded by Council Boucher. Any discussion on the council?
It might be helpful, just a little bit of background, since what this does is it exercises a different provision under our ordinances, which allows City Council to put certain items, out for public vote. There are a couple of ways that you can do that. One is, and it gets into the issue of what's an appropriate question and what's not, so it's very related. One is, and as this resolve is written, is to place an item out that's not binding. It's an advisory, gives the public a chance to vote on it, hear what they have to say, and take that into consideration in making a decision. To get back into whether it's and the reason it's written that way is because the prohibitions or restrictions on the initiative process for citizens also apply to the referendum process that the council would start. So your ordinance limits you somewhat in what you can put out for a binding question. So it goes back to the binding. If you wanted to make this binding, you get back into that argument that we've been having about what's an appropriate question or not. It is clear, however, in the ordinances that you can place a non-binding question on the ballot for folks to vote on.
I'd like to remind the councilors that this doesn't happen again and again and again. Maybe once a year. I take offense at the idea that the suggestion that this is going to happen on every decision. There are thousands of decisions, and this happens once or twice a year at most. It's about the people's right to petition. We just throw out 315,000, 500,000 as it means nothing. We just raised the taxes 78 cents per mil. I think the people who got their bills in the mail this month are reacting to that right now. And the people of this community ought to have the right to petition their government. Want to talk about apathy? Apathy sets in when they feel that they are totally unempowered because they don't even trust, as we heard last night, their own city councilors. Thank you.
But I'll encourage the citizens of Lewiston, pay close attention to what's happening in your community right now, because things are trying to change and there's this major power struggle, and we can't let it happen to our community.
Trying as I may to let this whole thing go, and all you do is get a good slap in the face. There's a legitimate cause that this is a legitimate effort to petition. That's all it is. And these issues get misrepresented by some of my main colleagues. This is not an issue of, and what's wrong with the town hall initiative? I've been to town hall initiatives, and they're very productive, and it's healthy for the public, for the private sector. Putting this land for sale is good for the private sector. Now, Mr. Hood came here with his attorney, and I respect that, and I wasn't going to address the matter. But what's he afraid of? If the city doesn't buy it, is there not a market for his land in the private sector? I think that's the issue, that there is no market in the private sector, at least the way it is. Personally, I believe in that market, and I believe it's there, and I wanted it to go in the private sector for sale. We had that issue last night on the planning board about property on Holland Street. And I voted against the disposition of that property only because they would not put it on the market for the private sector to bid on the property or at least make an offer. The private sector is precluded from involving itself on this land. That's the problem. And there's a very powerful political movement taking place in this council today, and it's called the Maine People's Alliance. a welfare-based organization intended to preclude this process from taking place. And they too will suffer, they'll die from their own sting. Because those people who support the petition process now may very well act in retribution and prevent them from that same process. This is an opportunity to bring this petition to the people. That's the motion that's being offered now. And if there's one more effort to try to misrepresent what these people intend to do with this process, I will attempt to speak again. And I know I won't be allowed to do it, but that's how strongly I feel about this. Yes, there's a welfare-based constituency here trying to stop this effort from happening. There is a power struggle, Mr. Kerr. There is a power struggle. There is. It's called the redistribution of wealth. And those people who worked to develop the Smart Payne Park are on the planning board. That's the fruit of their labor. That was misrepresented as well. They wanted to take that $500,000 and put it on the bridge so we could better use the park. That was the motion. Read it in its entirety. That was the motion. These points have been misrepresented repeatedly in order to support a constituency. And I would move to say that those individuals on the council who are voting against this effort are part of that constituency.
I don't know what the council's afraid of. It takes 10 people who have to come down to City Hall to sign a document to request a petition to be taken out. That did not exist 20 years ago when I was involved in a petition process at that time. Much easier. Come down to the city clerk, request the language. Once the language is drawn up, go out and circulate it. Get a certain percentage of the voters in the last election. At this time, because of the large turnout in the 2014 gubernatorial election, I believe the number is around 954 people that would have to sign this petition within 60 days. So the people who signed the original 10 and anybody else who requested a petition to circulate, just like what happened last year on another item, and I don't know how this one is any different than that item as far as the argument on legislative versus administrative, but it would take 954 signatures, more so than last year. That's an awful lot of citizens. No, that's a whole lot more than come out and vote on the school validation budget each year. Thank you.
You got one.
Again, I just feel it's at times appropriate to let the people speak, especially when there's something fairly contentious. And I never do this, but I'm going to respond to Mrs. Gudis here. Every single constituent of mine that has reached out to me, whether in person, by phone, or by email, is completely against land banking, this purchase, all of that. So exactly what I'm doing is standing up for exactly what my constituents have told me. Now, if more of them want to come out and tell me something different, I'm going to listen, because that's what I was elected to do. And that is precisely what I'm doing with this. Do I like the idea of everything that I do? I was elected to make decisions here with these 6 other folks. Do I like the idea that everything that we do could possibly come up and come back to us? No. Do I respect the process? Yes. And my people told me what they want, and I'm voting with them and at least giving them a voice. And up or down, at least they had that say. And I don't love it. That's how it is. So I'm supporting putting this resolve on the November ballot.
Councilor Chance?
On that note, Councilor Bouchard reminded me of a similar thing I've heard, not particularly about this, because I haven't heard from anybody on this one, outside of a few people. But what I have heard over the last 2-3 years is residents and neighbors saying, the fix is in down there at City Hall. The fix is in. I must have heard that a dozen times in 2 years. The fix is in. I don't bother with that. That's apathy. That's apathy from voters, residents, everybody. And that is what we have throughout Lewiston right now. And for the council to sit here and say, we're not going to let you, and it's up to us at this point, have a say in this, regardless of whether we think it's going to pass or fail or anything else, is only fueling that problem. The fix is in. It's already made up. And I tell people, no, it isn't like that. The fix isn't always in. come down to these meetings, get involved. They don't want to. This is another example of one of the many reasons that people adopt this attitude. So what we can do tonight is to allow them to have a voice. And like I said, I believe that if the residents voted on this, it wouldn't come out the way I would like to see it. But it is what it is, and that's what this is about. It isn't about an up or down vote or a parking lot. It's about letting the people have a say. And what we heard from the speakers extremely passionately tells me that people really do care about this.
The item before you is item 2B, and the motion in front of you is as follows. To approve the resolve directing the city clerk to place a question on the November regular municipal election ballot regarding the acquisition of 2 and 26 Oxford Street. Are you ready for me to call the vote, Mr. Mayor?
Absolutely.
Counselor from Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
No.
Ward 3,
No.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
No.
Ward 6,
No.
and Ward 7.
Yes.
Motion failed. It received a vote of 3 to 4.